Good afternoon, everybody. As he has already said, I'm Presentation A Sangoni from the South African National Space Agency. I am also the South African National Contact Point for Horizon 2020 in the space theme. Within the South African National Space Agency, I manage SANSA's stakeholders. So I think it's quite fitting that for me to be here because this is all about cooperation. Okay. What I have for you as an outline is really South Africa's space legislation instruments. I have South Africa's space facilities, the establishment and mandate of SANSA, then what it is that we're already doing in Europe and what it is that we would like to further do with Europe, and South Africa's space future. South Africa has two national departments that really run with space. There is one that runs on policy and the other on strategy. This is the one that runs with the policy is the Department of Trade and Industry. And policy is then, strategy is then run by the Department of Science and Technology. We at SANSA are an implementing agency of the Department of Science and Technology. But then all these instruments then guide us into how it is that we're supposed to carry out space activities in the country. Our national facilities. There's one thing to note, though, that astronomy is not, astronomy is a sister projects within the spaces in South Africa. So I think because of the SKA project and because of their history, really. So we have HADRAO, the astronomy facilities. There's one arrow as well missing there from Cape Town. Cape Town is right at the bottom, where we have our astronomy facilities. We have HADRAO. HADRAO is the Hartebeest Radio Astronomy Observatory. There they do they do radio astronomy research and they do space geodesy. The astronomy facilities are merely the precursors to the SKA project. And then we have another observatory, as you have already heard, the South African Astronomical Observatory. It's in Cape Town, and the Southern African largest telescope. It is also situated in Cape Town. SANSA Space Operations, on the other hand, used to be called the CSR Satellite Application Center. It is also better known as HBK. There we have our ground stations, facilities. Okay, let me first mention that it has now been migrated into the agency, although it has a rich history in South Africa. Now, SANSA Space Operations carries out our TTNC activities. It does launch support services, in-orbit testing, and various other housekeeping services that are involved in launch services. Then we have HOTEC. HOTEC is our Space Systems Assembly and Integration Testing Facility. We're hoping to use HOTEC to really advance our industry in space in South Africa. And the hope is that the South African National Space Agency will then utilize HOTEC for industry development. Then we have our SANSA Space Science facilities there in Hermanus. Previously they were known as the Hermanus Magnetic Observatory. There it's space weather research that is done, and really ionospheric research, the relation of the sun to the earth, that kind of research that is done at SANSA Space Science. And we also have a base in Antarctica, where we study the South Atlantic anomaly. So we also part of a global space weather center network, and I think we pride ourselves very much on these facilities. We also have, you see the OTR there, overbag testing range. That is is a national facility, but it is housed within DINAL, and it is utilized by our defense, but there are also international international partners and organizations that utilize the testing facility. It's mainly for weapon testing. Then we have DINAL Space Tech. You may know that South Africa has already built 2 satellites. Those were demonstrator satellites though, Sunset 1 and Sumbandila Set. So all the IP and all the experience gained from that was sitting at a company named Sunspace. Sunspace has now been absorbed into government, but then it sits within DINAL, and they are now called DINAL Space Tech. Okay, the establishment of SANSA. SANSA was launched in December 2010, and it came into operations in 2011, on the 1st of April 2011. Now, you must also note that all these facilities that I talk about were in existence prior to SANSA's launch and operations. So when SANSA then was launched, mainly for coordinating all activities of space in South Africa, then some of those facilities then were then migrated into SANSA. SANSA it derives its mandate from the South African Department of Science and Technology's National Space Strategy. It also has an act, so it has legislation to it as it exists. SANSA structure. It's quite a simple structure. We have a corporate office that supports the different thematic areas. The different thematic areas that SANSA has chosen are Earth observation, space operations, space science, and space engineering. Now within Earth observation, we have our data archiving and data processing systems. We also do Earth observation research. We also have our okay, I'll get back to that now, forgetting. Now within space operations, at the Earth Observation Directorate, while used to sit within SANSA space operations at Hartebeeshoek, but now it has since migrated, and it sits close to the corporate office in Pretoria. SANSA space operations, on the other hand, is our ground stations facility, as I had already mentioned before. The SANSA Space Science is the one that was called Hermanus Magnetic Observatory. Within the space engineering projects program, what has happened in South Africa is that because of the delay in the advancement of the space engineering projects, that particular unit, it has remained a unit. It is not yet a directorate. And what will then really confirm it to be a directorate is that we will continue to work with industry to ensure that we build the satellites. We will continue to develop our infrastructure at HOTEC, as I had already mentioned, for our AIT facilities. And we just need to continue to ensure that we have a very mature industry in order for us to then be very effective in space engineering. Now, SANSA's mandate. SANSA's mandate really, as I already touched, is to coordinate all the space activities in South Africa. But in so doing, we need to be mindful of international cooperation. We need to develop our industry. We need to ensure that human capacity development is developed. Human capacity is developed. We need to set out outreach programs, and we need to develop our infrastructure within South Africa. Now, our European cooperation. Currently, there exists a dialogue between South Africa and the European Union, a space dialogue. Within that dialogue, various aspects are discussed. The framework projects ran under the dialogue, and Horizon 2020 projects will also run within the dialogue. We also have a skills development cooperation agreement, we're trying to work that out to see how it is that South Africa and the European Union, in partnership with ESA, can then develop skills for South Africa. And we also have a relationship with ESA. At the moment, we are carving how it is that our projects need to be outlined with ESA. We hope that we sign the cooperation agreement early next year, and the two heads of space agencies have already set out working groups on developing these projects further. We have a relationship with the JRC, and we have the JRC relationship is on Earth observation. We have a relationship with DLR on all SANSA's thematic areas. Now, future cooperation. It is evident that in this part of Europe that the Horizon 2020, we're very active in Horizon 2020. And as the national contact point, I saw it fit that I need to be part of this, of this conference, because then it then allows us the experience, it allows the researchers to really match, and that is really what I am here for. I am also here for ensuring that we pay our industries. Our industry is very young. Our industry is quite enthusiastic, but they're not yet sure which side to go. Now that one has realized that Latvia has got such a mature industry, we could then, I am going to go back actually to the South African industry to say this is what Latvia has. And I am sure that we shall get pairs, we shall get industry partners for all the industries that I've heard today. You must know that even if your particular industry is not in Earth observation, space operations, or space science, as I've heard some others are in aerospace, we have an aerospace industry in South Africa. We have an aviation industry in South Africa. Even the astronomy industries, these are our sister industries, but then it's just that for the sake of SANSA, they are not within the National Space Agency. So I see South Africa and Latvia really working on a number of corporations, really. Okay. Lastly, now our road towards 2030. What is it that South Africa really like to achieve? We are driving towards a knowledge economy. We would like to ensure that we strengthen cooperation. And how do we do that? By exactly what it is that I'm doing now, promoting our space science and technology capability, our research capabilities, and I believe that as I live here, I have a fertile ground to get to South Africa and ensure that this cooperation is strengthened. And we're working towards a national space program, which we call Vision 2030. Now, within that program, we'd like to ensure that we have appropriate technology platforms and that we're advanced in human capital development. So I think that is all. Thank you very much.